Hello students. So coming back to our problem on multiple constraints, we have seen that by using what we refer to as the active constraint method or the restrictive constraint method, how we can solve one problem. That's one example which I showed you, that in this particular method, the method itself is able to decide that which constraint becomes active for which material. And we have seen here that for let us say for the three materials here, 1, 2 and 3, constraint number 1 becomes active. For fourth and fifth, constraint number 2 becomes active, and for fifth, say last one, constraint number the 1 again becomes active. But keep it in mind that we have calculated m1 and m2 as the absolute values of m masses, which not only depends upon the material properties rho e, rho and sigma y, but it also depends upon the values of f and L, as well as the value of delta. That is the deflection which we are saying is the permissible deflection. So f and delta, in addition to your material properties, they are also coming into picture, and we can very well foresee here that if you change the values of f, L and delta, even if I keep the values of rho and E or rho and sigma y constant for a material here, the answers for M1 and M2 will vary, and accordingly you will see that specifically delta, when you say, or when I say delta upon L values, it will have effect upon the absolute values of M1 and M2. Means it will decide, the L and delta can actually dictate which constraint becomes active for which material. And this is exactly what we will see, that how this may be a problem which we want to actually then sort it out, and we will see today that how you get rid of this particular problem, which I'm just trying to say here, that your answers are the answers means your activeness or restrictiveness of a constraint is dependent upon the values of L and F in this particular example. And in many examples they will again depend upon some other parameters, except other than material properties, which we do not desire. And that's what how do you solve it, we will see it today. That if I want that this activeness must be independent of m1 and m2 of f, L and delta, it shall only depend upon the material indices rho by E or material index rho upon sigma y. How do you get a solution for that? Okay, so moving forward, so we have seen that you have the expression for m1 and m2, the mass given by stiffness as a constraint of a tie rod, and the mass given as m2, that is the mass given as or mass designed for the strength based design of a tie rod. Again, the objective function is actually the minimization of mass. So if we look at this problem graphically, this is what I see. So what I observe here is that we have just plotted the two masses. We have just plotted m1 here on the x-axis, and m2 has been plotted on the y-axis. The absolute values of masses have been plotted, and that is what we observe here. What I am trying to show you is that there are a number of bubbles here. And what does each bubble represent here? Each bubble here actually is representing a material, because if I say this is one material, means now if I have designed this for one material, let's say this is aluminum if it is, and if I design it according to the first criteria, the first constraint, the mass is m1 given here, and for the same material, if I design a tie rod on the strength as a criteria, that is m2, the mass is here. So each bubble here is representing nothing but a best material, but a material here. Accordingly, you are able to plot all the materials on this chart, whatever materials. If I have 5 materials, like last or 6 materials that we saw in this our previous numerical example, all those 6 materials can be plotted here in the form of 6 bubbles here. And if the number of materials is more than any number of materials, you can plot all the materials on m1 versus m2 chart. The mass one means mass given for constraint number 1, the calculated mass value for constraint number 2, they can be plotted. And obviously our search area, because it is a minimum mass design, being a minimum mass design, the search area happens to be here. This is where our search area is actually. We don't want to look the materials into this region, because here the mass for M1 for constraint number 1 and constraint number 2 both are high. We want to have a solution here, where we are saying is that this is the region where we want to have the material. Means in this region, if I have a material available here, that will be further best. Means it will have minimum M2 and minimum M1. This is a vector where we say the mass is decreasing this way, and we want the mass to be less, and that is why we are saying that our best choice of the material is located in this box. Or you can actually keep this, what is shown here, you can keep on drawing these boxes here and keep on moving this box inwards towards the origin till there is no material. There's only, like we have seen here, that there was only one material left here in this chart, and that is why even if you move this box further here, it will not be of any solution, because no material is available here, and that is why we left with this here. That, and then we say that okay, the black dot is representing here the best choice of the material according to both the criteria of M1, of constraint number 1 and constraint number 2. But keep it in mind that the if you now look at this chart again, once again we find here that on this blue line, if you have, I am calling it as a coupling line here, any material which lies on this line, which is of line of slope 1 passing through the origin here, we find that for that particular dot, the values of M1 and M2 are equal. That's what we say at the coupling line. Any material which is located at the coupling line here, or I will not call it as a material, I can better call it as a solution. Any solution of your multiple constraint selection, material selection problem. And now you can say that because it is a multiple constraint material selection problem, that is why the solution will be just a material. So any solution which lies on this coupling line will have M2 is equal to M1. Means for that particular solution, both the constraints will be equally active. The materials which are located here in this zone, we say for these materials, for these solutions here, constraint number 2 is dominant. Why I say that? I say that because for this materials we can say that constraint number 2 is more dominant, because we say that for this solution, let us say I take this example here, for this solution the mass M2 is very high, the mass M1 is low, and according to our active constraint problem, for this pair of M1 and M2 we will select the largest of the pair, the larger in the pair. So I will design it according to M2, not according to M1, because M2 is larger than M1, and that is why I say the material which lies here, or the solution which lies here in this region, will have constraint 2 as the dominant constraint. But on the contrary, if I come to this point here, or if I come to this material or this solution here I say constraint number 1 is more dominant, because here the mass 1 is very high as compared to mass 2. So we can very easily see here that which constraint is more dominant. And as I already said, any solution which lies on this blue line here, which is a line of slope 1 passing through the origin, we say any material or any solution like the black one which nearly lies upon it will actually have both the constraints equally active, or in simple words I can say the mass M2 or will be equal to mass M1. But that is what I have seen, that now we have just plotted M1 and M2 as the absolute values of masses, which may be of some help to us in looking at the problem, but we need to have a better understanding. we have already said that the problem with plotting or with working with the absolute values of m1 and m2 is that the solution becomes dependent upon FL and delta. It is not independent of the values of FL and delta, but it is dependent upon FL delta, which are what we say are the design variables. If I want the solution to be independent of FL and delta, we need to do something else. And that is what we will see in our next slide, that how I can make the solution here independent of the design variables. The solution shall only then depend upon, or the selection shall only be then dependent upon at the end upon the material properties. So let's move forward. Looking at the same problem here, let us say I want to look at it in the form of a graphical solution, that how from our previous example only. Let's move forward. So I have the values of m1 and m2 given with me. The mass equation is there and the second mass equation is here for both the constraints, and out of that I can say that if I look at the material index, rho upon E is the material index for the first problem, and rho upon sigma y is the material index for the second problem. Keep it in mind that that in these examples for multiple constraint problems, we are going for minimization of the index. Means I am not taking E upon rho as the index, I am just taking rho upon E as the index and rho upon sigma y is the index. And that is why the mass m1 will be minimized if rho upon E is also minimized. And this is the only difference, just a different way of looking at the things. So I have the mass equation 1, mass equation 2, out of which we take out the first material index m1 rho by E, m2 rho upon sigma y. Okay. Now for the coupling line equation, I can say that when m1 is equal to m2, that is when both the constraints are equally active, we can say m1 is just equal to m2. And if that is the case, I will just equate m1 to m2. So I just equate m1 to m2. This gives me, I just write f upon delta L square rho by E is equal to fl rho upon sigma y, rho upon sigma y. And if I substitute rho upon E and rho upon sigma y as m1 and m2, that is the material index 1 and material index 2, I can write this as f upon delta L square m1 plus fl m2. If I solve this expression for m1, I can write m1 here as delta upon L into m2. So m1 is written here as delta upon L into m2. Keep it in now. The difference in what we were showing in our last slide and this is that there we have plotted the absolute values of m1 and m2, the masses, but now we will just see that we can actually plot in terms of material index also. We will do that later, but for the time being I have a solution for m1 from this expression. By equating the two equations, I say here that m1 is delta upon L times m2. And out of this, I will say now that delta upon L is what is called as the coupling constant. Delta upon L in this design problem of a tie rod happens to be nothing but deflection, that is delta upon the original length, which is nothing but a measure of the strain, the permissible deflection, that is what we are saying, per unit length. Permissible deflection per unit length, that's what we say is the coupling constant for this example. So m1 will be equal to delta upon L times m2. Both of them will be equal if this equation is giving you that. And if I now further move forward, I can take the log of this expression. This tells me that log m1 is equal to log m2 plus log delta upon L. And this equation is nothing but y is equal to mx plus c. That means now I can plot index 1 versus index 2, and it will be then you can plot, actually this is nothing but an expression for a straight line with slope 1, which is y is equal to 1, my m is 1 here, x plus c. And what is C? The C happens to be the intercept again, as we have been seeing in our earlier problems, and log delta upon L is the value of that. And we can now see that we will be able to plot the indices also, in addition to what we plotted in our earlier slides as absolute values of mass. You will be able to plot index. And if I look at now, the difference is that this will be now independent of the values of FL and delta. They they will have a particular value for a fixed value of delta by L, and we will see that how does that make a difference. Okay, let's look at it in in a better way graphically now. I go back to my first slide here. That what I'm trying to say is that we are right now not plotting M1 versus M2, but still looking at what happens when I plot mass 1 versus mass 2 for a solution. So solution 1, mass 1 versus mass 2 will be mass 1 and mass 2 are being plotted, but we are not plotting them against each other. What I am plotting? I am plotting mass versus length. Mass versus length. For these values, let us say we have plotted for aluminium, which has a rho value of 2700, E is 69 GPa, F value is given, sigma value is given, length is, let us say I am taking 20 mm, and we have two constraints. If you remember earlier, we said that you can actually design it for delta upon L value of 0.1 or delta upon N value of 1%. Right now, if you have the values of M1 and M2 available, so I have the first expression for, let us say, M1. This is a second degree expression, F upon delta L square rho upon E. So for a particular material, let's say for aluminium, rho and E value is fixed. If I take L value, let us say as 20 mm or any other value further, you can actually plot it for different values of L. So you can actually do it for different values of L. That's what is seen here, that the L value can then vary up to even 0.06 meter. So it's not only 20, we are plotting it further also. And what you observe that the mass equation M1 will give you mass for different values of L, which will be a curve, the blue curve which you see here. Whereas if you plot the mass equation M2, the value of mass M2 for different values of L, varying from here and going up to, let us say, 0.06 meters, we will say that it will give you a straight line, because it's a first degree expression, so it gives you a straight line. This, the pink curve, the pink line. So I say the pink line gives you M sigma, means mass of the tie rod according to the strength based design, and the blue curve here gives you the mass of the tie rod according to the stiffness based design, and they are being governed by these two expressions for M1 and M2. Okay, so can you tell me now where it is more active, which constraint is more active now? We can very easily observe that. Keep it in mind that the constraint which was giving you the out of a pair, the larger one was the active or the more restrictive constraint. And we observe here that for delta upon L as 0.1%, it is what we observe here, what we have plotted here. Sigma y constraint, the strength constraint, is active for a particular value. Let's say we say for short rods where the length is less. When the length is less than a particular intersection, this value here, we say the pink line, which is representing what we say the constraint number 2 for strength, that is actually active. Whereas after you cross over a particular value of L, after you go to let's say a long rod, we will then say that the first constraint becomes active. So I hope it is clear here that the constraint now for two constraints which is getting active here now depends upon the value of L as well as delta, that is delta upon L. For a delta upon L value of 0.1%, we have plotted it for different values of L, and what we observe that for short length tie rods, the strength constraint is active, whereas when you change over from when you go to a long length tie rod, the stiffness constraint becomes active, and I have a value here somewhere. It's nearly 0.045 meters of length, at which both the constraints are actually equally active. That is where we get an answer that the solution will give you mass according to the same mass, that is m1 is equal to m2 here. But still we have plotted the absolute values of mass for a delta by L value of 0.1%. Let us see what happens if I plot this delta by L value of 1%, because we said we will plot it for two cases. Delta by L value of 0.1% means delta by L is the measure of the permissible deflection per unit length. It's a lower value, that means I need a more stiffer material. When it is permissible value is 1%, means I need a less stiffer material. So if I plot this, the same curve ME for delta by L for a value of 1%, we get that this is the line, and this is the solution, that ME is delta for delta by L is 1% is here. And if I now compare, but keep it in mind that the m sigma value does not change, because the m sigma equation still remains the same, because I have not changed the L. I'm changing the L value same way, but the delta by L value we have not changed. So that is why we are just saying that, because we have just plotted now the solution for two delta by L values. The first one, the blue one, for delta by L value of 0.1%. The purple one here showing you the solution for delta by L value of 1%, where we say this one will simply mean less stiffer material, this one will simply mean more stiffer material in comparison. And let us say if I look at now a solution for 1%, delta by L for 1%, now we observe that which constraint is active. We observe that when I compare this solution, the purple solution, with the pink solution, the strength constraint is always active irrespective of the length. So for this particular case, we say this constraint is less demanding. Less demanding means it will never become active till the time we have plotted it up to 0.06 meter. It does not become active. The strength constraint only is active. So this is what is the understanding of the activeness, that which constraint becomes active, and then how does it depend upon the design variables of the problem itself. So this is what I just said, that for delta by L value of 1%, the strength constraint is always active, whereas when you took a delta by L value of 0.1%, we observed that for a certain length value of less than that, for a shorter length, we find that the strength was active. For a longer tie rod, the stiffness constraint was getting more active. But when you have a higher permissible deflection, the deflection constraint becomes inactive. The strength constraint is always remaining active, with respect to the stiffness based constraint. I hope this is understandable and we can relate it well to what we have solved in our basic example. I am just continuing with the same example and looking at it in a more realistic and a more conceptual way, that what is the meaning of that example. Okay. Let's look at now the same problem. I'm just looking at the same problem, but now what is the difference? That the difference here happens to be that instead of plotting the mass values, I am now plotting the index values. So we are plotting the index M2 versus index M1, and this has to be remembered always, that for these solutions, for these problems, the indices are being minimized. That is, the lesser is the value of the material index, the better it is. That means the lesser values are here, the smaller and smaller values, and that is what we will see, that the value, the solutions which are available here, that is in these boxes, they are the better solutions to us. because we are minimizing the index. If you still continue by plotting the maximization of the indices, the things will get reverted, and the best solution will come in this zone. This will be the zone in which the best solution will be then governed, will be available. But right now we are saying that the best solutions are available here in this box, in this region, and this is the search region. And we look at the solutions one by one. So the solutions which are available to us here, the solutions which are available to us here, they are what? These solutions. So the solutions which are available to here, let us say this solution here, it has got high value of index M1, and that is why the mass given by this index will also be very high, because we have to minimize the index. So the mass will be minimized if the index is minimized. So this solution will give you high M1 and also high mass, whereas the same solution gives you the low value of M2. That's what I write here, low M2, and accordingly it gives you the low mass for second constraint. And that is why, which constraint is dominant? The dominant constraint is 1, because it is giving you a higher answer, and that is why you will select it. When I look at this region, let us say this solution here, for this solution it gives you a high M2. That means the index number 2 is high for this solution, and that is why the mass value given by this will be also high, because the index has to be minimized for minimum mass. Similarly, this solution, the same solution, it gives you a low value of M1. High and low are relative, so here I say low value of M1 relative to M2. And low value of M1 means that this solution will give you a low value of mass M1. And which one is now active constraint? We understand that the constraint which gives you a higher answer, a higher value, is actually the dominant. That is why we write here the constraint number 2 is dominant here. And obviously we already know that this is the location where we find that this is the decreasing M values. The better solution is found this way. And now if you look at this, what is the difference? I see there are two lines here. One is the coupling line shown here, and the second is the coupling line shown here. And if you recall your discussion, if you go back to my previous slide, we have already seen that you are plotting M1 versus M2. So it is log M2, log M1 is equal to log M2 plus log of delta upon L. And delta upon L is what we say is the coupling constant. That is what we call as the coupling constant. And that's what we say, that the only difference between this line here and this line here, they are parallel lines of the same slope, but the difference here happens to be the value of the intercept. This has a higher intercept, this has a lower intercept, and the intercept is referred to as the coupling constant, and that is why it's written that this line is actually giving you a higher coupling constant, this line is giving you a smaller coupling constant. And coupling constant for this example was delta upon L. That is, if the delta upon L value is higher, you will have this line. If the delta upon L value is lower, you will have this line. Okay. Let's look at the same solution now through actual materials. So what we saw in our previous slides was hypothetical solutions, that you have some materials and each bubble represents one solution. Now what we see is that actually how does it look like. So if you look at this chart plotted using EduPack, what we have done, I have plotted the indices. In place of plotting the material properties, I am plotting here density upon Young's modulus, that is rho upon E, and on the x-axis we have density upon yield strength, that is rho upon sigma y. So you are plotting here M1 versus M2. Material index 1 has been plotted against material index 2. Not a property chart, it's a property chart, but it's a combination chart. That means you are, in place of plotting your normal strength versus density or modulus versus density chart, we have used the advanced function available in EduPack to plot the material indices themselves. So we have plotted the material index 1, rho upon E versus the second material index, that is rho upon sigma y. Because these indices are to be minimized, which you have already written here, the best solutions will be where? Whether here or here. The best solution will be available here, where both the values of M1 and M2, both of them are getting minimized. So the best solutions will be available in this region. So what we observe here, we have said that we have plotted here M1 as rho by E, and we have plotted here on x-axis M2 as rho upon sigma y, and obviously this is the expression which you say log M1 is equal to log M2 plus log delta upon L. And if you look at this search region, in this region we have already said that this will give you a higher value of M1, which will give you higher mass, low value of M2, which will give you low value of mass, and constraint number 1 is active here, because constraint number 1, that is M1, is greater than M2, and that is why constraint number 1 is more dominant in these regions. Whereas when I look at this region here, the opposite thing happens. When I look at these coupling lines here, on these lines we will say M1 is equal to M2. M1 is equal to M2. And what we then see that the difference between these lines happens to be the intercept value, and this is the search region where we'll have the decreasing M value. And what are the materials which we observe are available to us? I have plotted here elastomers, plastics, metals and alloys, and a part of composites. Right now the composites are not plotted here, we have just plotted here elastomers, means rubbers, plastics and metals and alloys. And we see the materials which are coming to be the best used materials are some maybe steel, and we have beryllium which is coming here in this zone. These materials are not very good materials because I am looking, my search zone is here in this zone where the decreasing M values are actually obtained. What will happen to this search zone? How this search zone will get more populated if I add more materials into my chart is what we are going to observe. So what we have done now, in addition to my elastomers, plastics and metals, I have now added technical ceramics, and that is why now the yellow portion come into picture, and the ceramics are now better placed. They are actually equally good. You have a diamond which is available here, which will be very good material, but obviously we cannot use it. Ceramics normally are not used for structural applications. And still we have, just for an observation, we have said when we add ceramics here, they become our best choice for this case. But let us see if you add 4 further materials. So what we did, we now added composites. So we have added composite materials here, and now we find that there are more materials. A number of materials come into picture. You have the carbon fiber, UD, prepreg, and other materials which are available to us. So we observe here that the best materials are located in this zone, which are actually available to us, and accordingly you can select the materials here. So we find here that this is the region in which the best materials are available. And what are these materials? You have most of these candidates, the brown ones here are actually ceramic, are composite materials. Ceramics will be taken out here. If you remove composites out of discussion, ceramics out of discussion, then I may settle for metals. If you do not still have materials here, and then you keep on expanding it till you have a reasonable number of materials out of which you can select it. So this is what we had as what we are discussing as the active constraint method. So we have been able to decide that what is the active constraint method. We have seen it graphically today, that how it looks like and how we can use the active constraint method to in a graphical manner also to find out the best material for constraint for those problems where there are number of constraints more than one. Like we have 2 constraints here, so you are able to find out the best material solution for which will satisfy both the constraints according to the design problem. I will post one assignment which will make the things further clear and understandable to us. Okay. Thank you.